is vlogmas day 4. It is well into the day already. It's almost 2 o'clock. Chloe is in the middle of her second nap and I have done absolutely nothing productive today, and I probably will continue to do nothing productive for the rest of the day. The beau went to work today, actual work, so he's working from his actual work office today, and he also went to work yesterday. My mom also left today. She probably left about half an hour ago, and she won't be back for probably another week or so, and then she'll be spending all of the holiday season with us and probably well into the new year. I have to say that with COVID, it's been so nice to have my mom here because one, it's great for Chloe because needless to say, Chloe does not get to interact with other babies or kids, let alone adults, because, well, COVID. So it's been so nice for her to have her Lola and for them to be able to interact, and she can play with someone other than me or the beau. And also it's been a great help to me. It was probably more so helpful before we had Chloe sleep trained because Chloe's schedule before was so erratic that it was so hard to get the time to do just like basic chores like laundry or, you know, loading and unloading the dishwasher or like making meals. Now, because of her kind of scheduled sleep, it's a little bit easier to plan those things. So it was really incredibly helpful in the early months when we had Chloe, but it's still great now. Hello, I was gonna have Chloe here to talk about her sleep training journey, but it's almost her bedtime, so just wanted her to make a little cameo. Hello. Say hi, Chloe Wowie. Okay, bye-bye. Good night. Let's talk about sleep training now. I have been meaning to upload something about sleep training for a while, and I actually did do a video where I did like interval check-ins while we were actually doing the sleep training process, but I didn't really like how the video turned out. I thought it was just too rambly and it was way too long. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath because I just chased Chloe around the house and then I ran up the stairs. But I'm going to talk about sleep training in 6 parts, basically. 1 is why we hired a sleep consultant. 2, how we chose our sleep consultant and who we chose. 3, what the process was like. 4, the actual sleep training experience. 5, the results. And 6 would be tips. I do want to preface and say that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a first-time mom. I'm just winging it. So don't take anything I say as gospel. Do your own research. And this is also just like what worked for us. It might not be the same because, as you know, every baby is different. Okay, so first of all, why did we hire a sleep consultant? Well, Chloe wasn't sleeping well. It's a long story short. She was a really great sleeper when she was a baby. Well, as good of a sleeper a baby can be when you have to get up every 2 hours because you're hungry. She was good up until probably around the 5-6 month mark, and then her sleep just got worse and worse and worse. Started with her naps. She never really slept more than like 4 or 5 hours at a time, but it got worse and worse and worse. And our breaking point was around like the 6-7 month mark, I guess, where she would just wake up in the middle of the night just screaming, and we couldn't get her to calm down, and she would be up for like 3 hours in the middle of the night, and she would only fall asleep if she was on top of you or if somebody was holding her. And then as soon as you went to put her down in her crib, she would just wake up instantly and then start crying again. And also during that time, her naps were about like 25, 30, 35 minutes long, and then that was it. So we got the sleep consultant mainly for Chloe, of course, because she was just not getting enough restorative sleep, that she was fussy a lot more during the day, and it just showed in her overall mood. Like, she was still a really happy baby, but she would just, you know, be a little bit grumpy, which you can't blame her because she wasn't getting nearly as much sleep as she should have been getting at the time. At the time when she was about 7 months old, she's over 9 months now, but the recommended hours of sleep for that age is about 15 hours, and she's probably only getting like 10, 11, if that. We read books, not necessarily like sleep training books, but we read parenting books and like what happens, like pregnancy books, and then what happens after the baby comes books, and we just didn't find them very helpful. You know, they'd be like, oh, put your baby on a schedule. It's like, what does that mean? Like, how do you put your baby on a schedule? Like, what should the schedule be? We just needed a little bit more guidance. So that's why we hired a sleep consultant. I just realized that I had my hair tucked into my sweater for the last 5 minutes and it looks really weird. But number two is how we chose our sleep consultant. It was actually the beau who suggested the one we went with, which is Goodnight Sleep Site. I'll link them below. It's not sponsored or anything. We paid for the service with our own money. And it was great. I think the beau had seen like an advertisement, or not an advertisement, but it was, he Googled it and it like popped up that this sleep consultant was on the, I think, Maryland Dentist Show or City Line. And then we Googled some other ones. There's like Taking Care of Babies, who has a great Instagram page. So if you're a mom and you're not following her, you should, because she gets really good sleep tips. We ended up going with Goodnight Sleep Site because one, I'm pretty sure they're based out of Canada. At least they have consultants in Canada. And I felt like we were just getting a lot more bang for our buck. So they had different programs at the time. Since then, they've totally revamped like the services that they provide. But at the time, they were offering this 2-week sleep consultant service where you have like a 1-hour consultation, you have 4, I think, 15-minute follow-up calls, and then you have like daily access to emails during the business hours, which is like 8 to 7 or something like that. So I just feel like we were getting a little bit more for our money than if we went with Taking Care of Babies, which was you got like a booklet and you got like one like FaceTime call or something like that, and that's it. So there wasn't like this continual follow-up. At least that's how I remember it. So that's why we went with Goodnight Sleep Site. And just kind of a spoiler alert, obviously the sleep training worked incredibly well for us, and I would highly recommend Goodnight Sleep Site. Our consultant, her name was Emily, and I'll put her like name below too, just so that you know. And it was great. She was awesome. Actually, that brings me to part 3, which is the whole process. So when I talk about process, I mean just getting to know our sleep consultant and her getting to know us, and setting out the expectations and goals. So with Goodnight Sleep Site, like I said, there's like a 1-hour consultation at the beginning when you decide to go with their service and pay for it. They also had a 15-minute free consult, which we took advantage of because, I mean, when you're going for a service like this, especially during COVID times where you're not meeting face to face and usually everything's over the phone, if somebody is offering you like a free consult, take it, because it just gives you an idea of what they have to offer. You know, if you can even jive with the consultant, like if you like who you're working with, if you don't like who you're working with. So we, after talking with our consultant, it just like clicked immediately that it was like, she makes sense, this is what we should be doing, please tell us more. And then that's how we ultimately made the decision to go with Goodnight Sleep Site and, you know, our consultant Emily. Because again, like as first-time parents, like you just don't know some things, and some people could tell you like till, you know, the day is done, like put your baby on a schedule, but if you don't know, you don't know. So we just needed the help. So like I said, there was this 1-hour consult, and before even the consult began, we had to fill out this like questionnaire form, which is just all the information about like what's going on in your household. Your goals and expectations is a major thing. You know, what do you want out of sleep training? And maybe that's how your sleep consultant will kind of cater the plan to you. Like if you don't want to ever hear your baby cry, you want to go like the softest method possible, even if it takes the longest time, like that's something that you have to set out at the beginning, because then your sleep consultant can cater that sleep training plan to how you feel and what you're comfortable with. I'm trying to remember what else we wrote in the questionnaire, but we wrote, you know, like, does Chloe sleep in her own room? How old is she? How much does she weigh? Or does she have any underlying health conditions that would impede sleep training? Because your baby also has to be ready for sleep training too, right? I've heard that you can put your baby on a sleep schedule pretty much as soon as they finish that first trimester, so around 4 months. We waited till about 7 months, and that's what we were comfortable with. We probably would not have sleep trained her any earlier, just because it's just a personal decision, but it's really just up to you and your household. But it's really important that you're super honest and super upfront, because basically the more you give is the more you'll get back. So once we completed the questionnaire, we set up a time with our sleep consultant and we talked for about 45-50 minutes about what we can expect, what plan we're gonna go through or go with. And she actually emailed us that night a detailed plan about everything. So you know, when Chloe's gonna wake up, when she's gonna eat, when her first nap is gonna be, when is she gonna eat lunch, her second nap, snack, dinner, bedtime. And she also gave us a bunch of resources to read over, like what to do and what not to do. She also advised us on the sleeping environment and the conditions of Chloe's sleeping environment. So has to be pitch black or very dark, especially during her naps too. White noise, always have it playing when she's sleeping. It will help drown out like other noise happening in the house, and also just kind of keep this consistent sleep environment for her. And it has to be, you know, nice and cool. So that's why we got the Dyson fan, because it's not just a fan or a heater, it's actually a smart fan, I guess. So you can set a temperature and then it will just maintain that temperature in the room. So we set it to 20 degrees Celsius and then it maintains that. And then for the 14 days that we were sleep training Chloe, and we had the help of the sleep consultant, we had this spreadsheet that I would fill out every day, and basically it's just the whole day, a summary of the whole day. So I would jot down notes about when she would, when we would change her diaper, when she would take a nap, how her nap went, if it was easy to put her down, if it was difficult, if she slept all the way through, if she didn't, you know, what I ate, all that kind of stuff, compiled it. It's best, again, like I said, the more you give, the more you get back. So if you're really detailed, then your sleep consultant can obviously see trends or she can make suggestions. So we would like converse through this spreadsheet. It's like a Google Doc, so both of us can edit it and it's just, you know, continuously being updated. Yeah, so if our sleep consultant noticed like a trend, like she, for example, she wasn't taking a cat nap in the afternoon, so between her second nap and bedtime, there was originally kind of like a long period there. I think there was a 3-hour awake time, and we would offer Chloe a cat nap, but she would never take it. So our sleep consultant said, okay, let's just cut the cat nap out completely and just adjust her day accordingly. So we ended up moving her naps a half hour each one so that there was less awake time between her second nap and bedtime. Okay, part 4 is the actual sleep training method and experience. So we ended up going with the pause and peak sleep training method. If you Google sleep training methods, there's lots of different kinds of sleep training methods. It's basically a range of how much crying, how much of your baby's crying can you stand. So there's the one end of the spectrum, which is the cried out method, which is, you know, if you're okay with hearing your baby cry and cry and cry and cry until they just give up, then that one's for you. And then there's like the, I guess, gentlest form of sleep training, which is like a no cry method. And we ended up kind of, I feel like, somewhere in the middle. So we went with the pause and peak method, which is basically you do interval check-ins when your baby cries. So it's the first 7 days. So on the first night, there are really short intervals, so I'm just making these numbers up, but you check, you know, if your baby's crying, you start a timer for 4 minutes, you check on them, and then the next check-in is maybe like 6 minutes, and then, you know, if your baby starts crying again, the next check-in is like 12 minutes, and then it's 12-minute intervals until they fall asleep or until it's wake up time. So depending on how much your baby cries, you're obviously gonna have to be getting up more frequently. And then each day the intervals get longer. So if the first day started at, what did I say, 4, 6, 12, then the second day will start at like 6 minutes, 9 minutes, 15 minutes, until I think the last day, which is day 7, and then the intervals are maybe like, let's say, half an hour long. And then after that, so on day 8, if your baby's still crying, it's the cried out method. We were okay with a little bit of crying, so that's what we were comfortable with, and it actually worked really well for us. I'm just opening up the spreadsheet for our like sleep training, our 2-week sleep training period, so that I could just point out any notable things. But like I said, Chloe was having terrible sleep. That's just terrible, terrible sleep. So on the first day that we started sleep training, it was a Friday, and we did everything according to the schedule. Of course, it takes your baby a little bit of time to get used to the schedule. I should preface too and say that what we were doing before is we were basically catering to whatever Chloe wanted. So whenever she wanted to wake up, if she wanted to wake up at 5:30 and she didn't want to go back to sleep anymore, we would wake up at 5:30 with her. And then about 2 hours was her like awake time. That's the how long she could be awake and be comfortable and not be overtired. And so we would keep her awake for the 2 hours and then put her down for a nap. And if she slept for only 30 minutes for her nap, then that was it. And we would just pick her up again and then kind of restart that 2-hour countdown until bedtime. So the schedule that we started with when we started sleep training was wake up at 6:30, nap at 8:30, 8:30 to 10:30, and then awake time. And then second nap was 12:30 till 2:30. And then we were supposed to do a cat nap somewhere around like 3:30, 4 o'clock for like 20 minutes, half an hour, and then bedtime at 5:30. So that's what we started with. And on the first day that we were doing sleep training, she was okay during the day. Like she definitely struggled to stay awake until her first nap, which was 8:30, because normally she would probably nap at 8, so she had to stay up an extra like half hour, but she was able to stay up until then, and she fell asleep really quickly, but then she woke up about 20 minutes later, and then she fell back asleep again, and then she woke up again, and then we ended up picking her up at 10:30. Her second nap was also pretty decent. It wasn't as great, and then we put her down for 5:30 for bed, and we had to check in on her a few times. So we put her down for 5:30 and we checked on her. She was crying on and off until about 6:30. And then she slept till midnight, and then we had to do the interval check-ins again until she fell back asleep at 2. So that was typical for her. So going to sleep, fine in the early evening, but then waking up in the middle of the night and just like not being able to go back to sleep for a couple hours. So the first day was just nothing happened, basically. However, the second day, it was amazing because the second day, Chloe ended up sleeping for the first time in her whole entire life for 12 hours straight. We put her down at 5:30 for bed, and she didn't get up or wake up until about like 5:30, I think, or 5:20 the following day. It was crazy and insane, and I remember waking up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and just like checking on her on our Nest Cam, wondering what she's doing and if she's okay, because she was quiet and she wasn't crying or fussing or anything. So it was crazy. I thought it might be a fluke, but then it just continued for the rest of the 2 weeks. Well, up until now, she just sleeps all through the night now. I should preface and say that when I say sleep through the night, I mean she'll wake up sometimes. She'll wake up actually a bunch of times throughout the night, and even now sometimes she'll wake up in the middle of the night at like 1 o'clock in the morning. She'll actually sit up in her crib. She'll just kind of like look around. Sometimes she's babbling, and then she just falls back asleep. So even though she's awake, she's not crying, which is a total 180 from how she was before, because before, when she would wake up, it would be her immediate reaction to just scream. It was very hard on everyone in the house. When my mom would stay over, and our guest room and Chloe's room were like right beside each other. So my mom would just like lay awake at night listening to Chloe scream her ears off. So it was just bad for everyone, and also especially just bad for Chloe, because obviously she's not getting enough restorative sleep, and you need sleep to grow. So I was just like really concerned for her and her lack of sleep. Anyway, so we did end up adjusting Chloe's sleep schedule throughout the sleep training process. She has pretty much maintained the same sleep schedule since midway through the sleep training process. So she still gets up at 6:30. She has her first nap at 9 to 11, second nap between 1 and 3, and then bedtime at 6 o'clock. We ran out of battery, but that's okay because I have so many. I don't remember where I left off though, but yeah, so we put Chloe on a schedule. It worked great for us. Yes, she struggled with her naps for probably the first week and a half. Some naps were really great, some naps were not so great, but for whatever reason, her bedtime, her overnight sleep, like starting the second night of our sleep training, it was just steady. It's funny because the Bo and I had agreed we would take turns doing the check-ins. So I did the check-ins on the first night, which we had to do basically the regular interval check-ins. And then he was supposed to do the next night, but he never had to because she slept all the way through the whole entire night. And then so I said, okay, you are scheduled for check-ins until you actually have to do check-ins, and he never had to do a check-in once. So for the 2 weeks of our sleep training up until to this day, and it's been almost 3 months later, 2.5 months later, because we started at the end of September and it's now December 1st, he hasn't had to do a single check-in. So that brings me to part 5, which is results. I am so happy about the results. It was the best money we spent. In case you're wondering how much it was, at the time it was like $500 and change. It was less than $600 for 2 weeks. But it was the best money spent because Chloe, not only is she getting sleep, and not only is it, well, let's be honest, benefiting the entire household because no one, you know, has to get up in the middle of the night or hear her screaming bloody murder in the middle of the night, but it's most beneficial for Chloe because one, she looks so much more well rested. I remember after the first like week of sleep training, everyone, and by everyone I mean my mom and the Beau's mom, were commenting how just like healthy and glowy her cheeks were. Like I said, she's always been a happy baby, and but she was just extra happy. And before we did sleep training, she would fuss for no reason just during the day. And when I say no reason, I mean we didn't think there was a reason at the time, but it's probably because she was grumpy because she was sleep deprived at the time. But after sleep training, she hardly fusses. If she fusses, you kind of know that something's wrong because she never does it anymore. Like I said, we also have a little bit more free time, obviously. So because of Chloe's like scheduled nap time, scheduled bedtime, you know, we can plan things better. So we can plan outings better. We can plan things while she's sleeping better. We can plan things after she sleeps better. And it's just an all around, it was like I said, the best money we spent. And it's crazy because not every baby needs help sleeping. Some babies are like perfect sleepers from the day they're born, but some do. And if yours does, I would highly recommend considering a sleep consultant. So the last thing I want to do is discuss tips. So tips that we received from the sleep consultant, and also just like, I guess, general tips that we've kind of discovered along the way. My first tip is, if you're going to commit to sleep training, is that you and your partner have to be on the same page. Obviously, you have to be on the same page about who's going to be doing the check-ins. You have to be on the same page about, you know, what the threshold of crying you can take, because if one of you is going to cave, then the sleep training is not going to be effective. So for example, if both of you agree that you're going to do like the cry it out method, but then one of you decides, okay, I can't, it's been an hour, I can't take it anymore, I'm gonna go check in on the baby, that's obviously going to be counterintuitive to the sleep training program. So that's the only thing I would recommend, is just like discuss it with your partner and say like, this is what we want to do, this is our goals, these are our expectations, and you guys have to be on the same page. My other tip would be to dedicate time for sleep training. So it's kind of being like on the same page, but don't half-ass it. For the Beau and I, we actually planned our sleep training process during a 2-week vacation of his. And I guess it's a little bit easier because COVID, so it's not like we were gonna go anywhere anyway. It's probably harder to give up your 2-week vacation when the alternative could be going on a holiday somewhere, but you really have to dedicate the time and the resources to commit to sleep training, because otherwise it's not going to be beneficial to you or to your baby. I already briefly talked about the white noise, but white noise is great. We use white noise even before sleep training, but we weren't using it consistently, and we weren't playing it all throughout the night. Like, we actually had a timer that it would just like turn off after a couple of hours, but our sleep consultant recommended white noise throughout the whole time that they're sleeping, whether it's naps, cat naps, or like their overnight sleep, is to have white noise playing, and loud enough so that you know, it's audible, but not so loud that obviously it like deafens your baby. And she actually also recommended that if there's like a particularly noisy part of the room, let's say they share a wall with a sibling or they share a wall with like a home office, put the noise machine on that wall or by that window or by the door so that it will help block out that noise, and it will just kind of keep a consistent noise environment in the room. Keep the room as dark as possible, especially during the day, during naps. A sleep sack was also recommended. We were already using the sleep sack. I actually bought these ones because I thought that they would help Chloe sleep. They were, I can't remember what the brand is now, but it's someone with like the little like beanbag egg on the chest to kind of mimic like a hand on the chest of your baby, and they're great quality sleep sacks, and although I don't really feel like they do anything, like I don't know, maybe Chloe finds them comforting because she's used to it now, but I do like the quality of them. But any sleep sack will do. It's a sleep cue basically, so when you know, put your baby in a sleep sack, it's kind of like triggering their mind that, okay, it's nap time, or it's sleep time now. One of the biggest tips, I wouldn't even say it's a tip, but one of the biggest things that our sleep consultant told us that I would not have known is to not check in on your baby during the naps. So I know it's really hard, especially in the beginning, because even for Chloe, like her nap schedule, let's say, is like 9 to 11, and she would sleep half an hour, and then the rest of the time she would cry. And you are not supposed to check on your baby unless, of course, they're in harm's way or something like that, you know. But you're not supposed to check on your baby throughout the entire nap period. So that's what I'm saying when I'd say you and your partner have to be on the same page, because if one of you really wants to check on your baby while they're napping, or you know, if they're awake during their nap period and the other one doesn't, you guys are gonna like butt heads about it. But the reason you're not supposed to check on your baby during that nap period is because apparently their sleep drive is like really weak. So if you stimulate them in any way, it will just basically reset their sleep clock, let's say, and it'll trigger them to be awake, and then they won't fall asleep ever again, well, for that nap period. So don't check on your baby during the naps. When you put your baby down for the nap, just leave them there, and if they cry, they cry, and then, you know, at 11 or whenever their nap ends is when you go in and you're all happy and, you know, cheery, and that's when you kind of start to stimulate them, but you don't do the check-ins during the nap period. This isn't really a tip, but something else that the sleep consultant told us that, you know, kind of makes sense. Well, it kind of puts things a little bit in perspective, I guess. But for babies, their morning nap is apparently mentally restorative, and their afternoon nap is physically restorative. So if you notice that your baby is like really struggling with their afternoon naps, it might be because they're learning a new physical skill, like standing, walking, crawling, that kind of stuff. So the tip there is to practice all of that stuff during the awake time. So when they're awake, keep it as active as possible, as, you know, energetic, high energy as possible, as you know, stimulating as possible, so that one, it doesn't necessarily tire them out to the point where they're overtired, but they're able to practice all of those skills, so that, you know, they can actually rest during their naps. So mornings are apparently mentally restorative. So if your baby's like learning to talk or learning like different cognitive skills, and they struggle, you know, with their morning nap, that could be why. And then the afternoon is like I said, physically restorative. I think those are like the main tips that we got. Like I said, it's totally better just to have the sleep consultant, and then you can ask all of your questions. I know for us, just like some ad hoc questions that we had were, you know, if we had an appointment, let's say, how do we adjust the sleep schedule? And it really depends on a couple of factors, like what time the appointment is and things like that. But you know, the schedule isn't supposed to be restrictive. It's supposed to be, you know, relatively flexible, but in a way that allows your baby to get the most sleep as possible. That is it. That is our sleep training experience. That is most of what I've garnered from the whole experience. I'm trying to think of anything else. If I think of anything else, maybe I'll drop it in the description box below. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask. I am not an expert, as I mentioned earlier, so I don't know if I'll be able to answer it. But I hope you found this video somewhat helpful, And yeah, like I said, I'll do my best to ask, but if you were considering a sleep consultant, I would 100% recommend it. Like I said, best money spent. Day 4. What does it say? It says, the perfect gift from you to you. That's actually funny because I was just thinking about what I was gonna get myself for Christmas this year. We're not huge gift givers anymore. In my whole family, to be honest, like as soon as, when I was a kid, obviously my parents would wrap gifts and Santa would come and she would drop off gifts and things like that. But as you get older, especially when I got my first job, I would just like buy myself whatever I wanted throughout the year. Like I never really waited till Christmas. And my mom's the worst. I think I might have mentioned this before, but she's not the worst. She's actually the best. But she is the worst with gift giving only because she can never like hold on to it. Like if she gets you a gift, she's so excited about it that she cannot wait until a specific day to give it to you. And with my mom, she's so thoughtful that just throughout the year, if she sees something that she thinks you'll like, or she knows you'll like, or she knows you'll love, or you need, or you want, she just picks it up for you. And then, she comes on like a random Thursday and says, here, I got this for you, which is awesome. Obviously, she's like really thoughtful and generous like that. But yeah, we haven't really been like huge gift givers. Well, Christmas gift givers in a really, really long time. Anyway, I'm gonna end today's vlog here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to our sleep training experience, and I will see you guys in the next video.